Hi everyone and welcome. We're doing something a bit different today. So I am here at Red Brick Farm, Ride to Achieve, and I have Clive Milkins with me. And Clive is, well, I'll ask him for his official title himself in a minute, but he's an international para coach. And Clive and I have been having some really fabulous conversations about coaching, about ethos around coaching, about thoughts on para, thoughts on ability versus disability. And so we're going to have a bit of a chat today about some of those topics. So, hi.
Hi. Thank you for interviewing me today. It's been a very interesting discussion, I think.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so what is your official title then?
Well, I actually wear many hats in different countries.
Yeah.
My official job title is I am the technical advisor, technical leader for the Canadian para equestrian team.
Okay.
And then also I work for the FEI under, they have a very good organisation called Solidarity, where they invite visiting representatives of the sport, I hate the word expert, to go to developing countries. So I help develop para programs at the moment I'm working mainly in Uruguay, Colombia and Bolivia.
Wow.
So I do that. And then in Europe and England I'm also a freelance coach for para athletes who want to use my services.
Okay, amazing. So lots of different hats as always.
Yeah.
So we've been having some really interesting conversations over the last couple of days. We've never even met before, have we?
No, but we sort of seem to click pretty fast.
Yeah. I think we've got a lot of the same sort of ethos on things. Obviously, I come from the mindset perspective and you come from more the physicality perspective, but both of them are intertwined completely. You know, you can't have one without the other.
No.
So it's no wonder that there's a lot of similarity in, I think, the way that we think about things. So what is it that drew you to para? How come you've been involved in it for so long?
Quite simply, I didn't want to do it. Somebody, a great lady who is no longer with us, suggested one day that I would be quite good at coaching para athletes. I was a college student. I wasn't comfortable with teaching practice and coaching people on the same level as me, and I was pretty nervous about coaching. And so Jane said I should coach athletes with a disability, and I went, forget it. Not my scene at all. So one day she said to me, Clive, I've got a visiting client coming in. Can you come in and coach her, because I've got to go and do a phone call? So I sort of shrugged my shoulders, and Jane was my course tutor, so I said yes, of course. And anyway, I taught this lady. I thought she had a slightly strange position, but we did some walk, trot, canter work. And at the end of the lesson, Jane came back in and says, thank you very much, Clive, that'll do. And then this lady got off into a wheelchair. And everybody said to me, there you go. You can teach disabled athletes with a disability. And that was my first intro into it. And then I was at Warwickshire College and doing a little bit of an evolutionary para program, even though we didn't know it was that at the time.
Yeah.
And then, unfortunately, I was teaching and I had a head injury. And somebody shouted, loose horse. And I sort of looked round and went, where? And it ran over the top of me.
Oh, gosh.
And it left me with quite an unpleasant head injury. And I did what we now would know is PTSD. And unfortunately, I wasn't very well at all. And I was on the verge of losing my job. And a great lady called Di Redfern, who runs an RDA group called the South Bucks RDA group, said, come and work for me. And I said, I don't think I'm capable of working for anybody at the moment. She said, okay, come and work for me for 6 months. Well, I worked there for 20 years, 11 months and 15 days before I actually left. So that's how I started.
Okay. And what is it that you love about it now?
Oh, the challenge. There's always a realistic solution to a challenge if we think in different ways and we recognise that there is a solution to many things that affect us in life.
Wow, okay. So what do you bring with that mindset to your coaching then?
An empty mind.
Yeah?
Yeah, totally empty mind. Obviously that's slight exaggeration. One of the things I've learned in the last few years is when you travel abroad, you don't have the security of your own arena. You don't have the security of your own horses, and you don't sometimes have the security of correctly fitting equipment. So one of the things I've really discovered is not having a formula, having a system of questions that I continually run through like a background program, and it's every single session I do. I have a system, and it's a system, and it includes hand gestures. So when I'm thinking, I'll do this, and even doing that means shut up, think. And one of my expressions is God gave us 2 eyes, 2 ears, and only 1 mouth. And I find coaches are so keen to showcase their own abilities that very often we forget that sometimes silence is golden. Less is more. And sometimes being able to shut up and watch and go, oh, that's nice. Or, bad word I know, nice is only a 6. Oh, that's really improved. Or, wow, I really like that. And then you say to yourself, okay, why? Why do you like that shoulder in, or that frame, or that child learning rising trot on a lead rein pony? So for me, coaching is about more questions than answers, always. And I run through the questions the whole time.
And we had a fabulous discussion yesterday about the idea of ego in coaching, didn't we?
Oh, yes. Yeah. And, you know, it's pretty difficult because it really is a challenge. You are employed because of your technical knowledge.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter what your sport is. You are employed because you are supposed to be an expert, a guru. And I think one of the things that frightened me a few years ago was I'd helped Sophie to win these gold medals. I would arrive at a lesson and somebody would expect me to create another world champion. And of course you can't. That's up to them. You give a little piece. And once I discovered, actually, by asking questions and by learning, and there'll be people that are watching this going, yeah, right. Actually, I do my best to be quiet and humble and spend more time learning. And balancing that as a coach who's paid to give their information, I think is a challenge for most coaches. And there's a pressure with that. And one of the things I've found a way around that is by actually having my own critical friends. Critical is the wrong word. But friends that will go, okay, I know you very well. I know how you can be when you're under pressure. And not being afraid to go, Clive, you were wrong. Could you have done it another way? And and as coaches, we feel alone, because as coaches, we are expected to know. And actually, the minute you go, actually, I don't know, I have this set of tools in my toolbox, we will run through my set of tools. And I very often will try an exercise 3 times. 3 is one of my magic words. If it doesn't happen 3 times, stop, reevaluate, and go again. So and that's how I work.
That's cool. I love the 3 time thing, because you know, so often a coach will just keep screaming the same thing at you, and I say it's like, you know, shouting louder in French, isn't it? You know, it's not it's not going in. So, you know, the best traits I've seen in coaches are things like flexibility. You know, the ability to, you're not paid by the words, so the ability to just be quiet and have a look. And I had a lesson with you yesterday, and it was lovely to just have the processing time to work it out for myself, so that it was more likely to embed and more likely to stick with me than having been taught it rote or ridden every move. You know, being shouted at every move, do this, do that, do this, do that. And it was one thing you mentioned was the sort of the more American system and the way that it is out there, slightly different to the UK.
Yes, it very much can be a very old-fashioned army way of coaching, where, and it's a system that works very well for them. So far be it from me to criticise, it's just an observation. Very often the clients put their horses on livery. The stable manager decides what the horse is fed, what saddle it's in, what its work regime is. You rock up and ride, and you're told what to do. And that seems to work for them. It's not a British mentality thing. The British aren't quite like that. And I one of the things I feel is very important, one of my non-negotiable words is accountability.
Spent the whole of last week doing lives on accountability. Tell us all about that.
We're all responsible for our own actions. And sometimes when I'm coaching, I will say, and you heard me say it this morning, that wasn't you. That was the horse. And one of the things we talk about in dressage is self-carriage. Do we ever discuss mental self-carriage? And that's something I'm exploring, and it's a chapter heading in my head which I've got to process and flesh out. But mental self-carriage, the ability for you as a human being to be under pressure in a dressage arena or a show jumping round or in an exam or driving a car, and you are responsible for your own actions. Yes, there are social rules. Yes, you stop at a set of traffic lights when they're on red. Yes, if you go 35 in a 30-mile-an-hour speed limit, you are responsible for the police car that comes up and gives you a ticket. You are responsible for your speeding aware course, as I know to my cost. I am not perfect. My point is, though, that we have to be able to go, this is my responsibility. And I do believe the therapeutic pony, the para horse, the event horse, the show jumping horse, they can, if we teach them right, have a responsibility, because there are times when we go cross country, we get it wrong. And there are times when the horse just goes, okay, mum or dad, I'll sort it for you, just sit there, hang on, and we'll get through this. That's a mental self-carriage. And we don't think, we talk about the technical ability to train a horse. We talk about technical information to ride a shoulder in or ride a flying change or a walk test. Actually, everybody has their own part of that responsibility. The groom's responsibility is this. The trainer's responsibility is that. The horse's, the rider's responsibility. The parent's responsibility. It takes teamwork to make that dream work, I think.
Cool. Okay, and one of the topics that we have been discussing is this concept of what I call, like training hard and competing easy, which is like, get all the elements in your training. Don't just leave it to competition. Sometimes there's an environmental element or something that you can only replicate at competition, and therefore you've got to kind of see that as a training competition, perhaps. But we've been talking about, people that leave things to chance, or, yes, right, which to me says it's about planning and preparation. So tell us your thoughts on, clearly they're very strong.
I have pretty strong opinions about rehearsal. I was not particularly good at exams as a young person. One of the things that I've now realised is you don't do an exam without the planning and preparation. Luckily, my parents can't hear me say this. When you do a school exam, you learn, you then do mock papers, you then do your revision, and then you do your exam. If you are going to be a stage actor, you do not stand on stage and deliver Shakespeare's soliloquy without learning the words first, then learning the emotions behind the words, then looking at other people's interpretation and the critics, and then rehearsing with the same equipment you're delivering your soliloquy on. Dressage or riding is a sport that we dress differently in training to we do in competitions, and then wonder why suddenly we don't like wearing a shirt and tie when it's hot, and yet those are the rules. One of the things, it's a story I tell a lot, is at the Olympics in Hong Kong, the field of play was 2 minutes 39 seconds from the warm-up arena. I visited every single steward the day before and said, please don't rush me to get me to the field of play, to get Sophie to the field of play before her test time, because it was too hot. The warm-up arena was an air-conditioned indoor school. We had a camera and a screen in the warm-up arena, so I knew when somebody was watching the arena before me, to know when the horse before me was doing a certain movement. Then we left the warm-up arena, went straight through the fans, and straight into the field of play, so that the horse and the rider were the most comfortable in the heat. It's things like Sophie was particularly tall on a tall horse. I'm not. If she was going to warm up without her jacket on, who was going to put the jacket on? When did we take the bandages off? Did we stop, refresh, and then go straight into the field of play, or did we stop and refresh 10 minutes before the field of play? So the horse had a break, the rider had a break, but we were still tuned in to go around the arena. I will do things like I have a certain set of pieces of music I play. So when I was working for Sophie in the British team, I would in my head play songs like We Are the Champions, I Vow to Thee My Country. They were, I wore my lucky socks. That's the planning and preparation, because okay, lucky socks don't mean anything, but if I didn't have them on, I knew they were not on, and it was a stress. Get rid of the stress, wear your lucky socks, who cares if it works or not? Those are the roles I go through, and timetables. You know, every single test we ever did was at 10:45. I set my watch to 10:45, because then Sophie got on at 10:25, which means I got off at 10:23, which means I got on at 10 o'clock, which means the horse had to be hand walked 10 to 10, which means I had to have finished platting by 9:30, which meant I started platting at 10 to 9 and the horse was fed, and I clocked backwards, and my clocks were, and you know, that was the obsession I got. I became so, and yeah, of course things go wrong and your clock stops or whatever, but that was how I taught myself a system, which of course then evolves in time.
And so I think there'll be people watching that go, yeah, I love the idea of planning and prep, I probably don't do enough of it, and not feeling prepared and not planning puts you into a stress level, which you don't need. So, you know, prepare, plan, prep, get your brain to its best possible place so that then you can pull out that performance.
Absolutely.
What about when things, because they do, go wrong outside of that plan? You know, how do you deal with that with a rider?
By sticking to your plan. Even when the plan goes wrong, which of course it does, because we're dealing with riders and horses,
Yeah.
It's briefing other people beforehand. So, for example, my parents wanted to come to the London Paralympic Games. Of course they did. I didn't want, they were getting older, they'd not really travelled on the tube before. I didn't want to deal with that. And I'm sorry, well, that's cruel. But I did not want to do. So my best friend said, I will do that. I will go to your house every morning. I will get your parents across London. I will send you one text that says they are here. And it's this controlling the controllables. And you have to, when something goes wrong, rider falls off. Actually, the rider fall off is the start of the next plan.
Yes.
So whenever there is a hiccup and an accident or a challenge to your, that's why I don't call it formula.
Yeah. Because
things happen, episodes happen, and I look at it as episodes or holistic.
Yeah.
If an episode happens, you immediately go into the rules of engagement for that episode. So it's, you just pick out the chapter on first aid, or the chapter on catching the horse, or the chapter on your rider's forgot the dressage test. And there is this thing, this wonderful 3 Fs, which, because we're on camera, flip it, forget it, focus. You stick to that system.
Yeah. Okay. And so what do you do to help the rider mentally prepare? So that's your system. What about the rider themselves?
Interestingly enough, the coaching is all about me. The riding is all about the rider. It's back to that accountability. So when I work at an international level with a rider, we have to know each other's systems.
Yeah.
And I do get into problems when the rider doesn't know my system and I don't know their system. So that's called communication. And one of the things that I do now a lot is take athletes to their first internationals. So therefore, like we here at Redbrook Farm, Jo, who runs this place wonderfully, she's very often my groom, because that's something else that is a controllable. Jo, you look after the horse. Jo knows me very well. I know Jo very well, so she deals with the horse elements. And so the rider has to know me, I have to know the rider, and again, responsibility.
So it sounds as well like, you know, I talk a lot about the idea of your teamwork. You can't do everything. You need to rely on other people to help you out with other elements, other experts and things. But it's bringing them together as a team. But it sounds as well, you know, it's being very clear on what everyone's role is.
Roles and responsibilities.
Yeah.
And they're written down.
Yeah.
They're written down. The rider's responsibility is to ride. In para, the rider's carer, support system or whatever, is there to fend off the press. is there to ensure that there are jelly babies for the rider to eat.
Yeah.
It's the carer's role to make sure the boots are. We had a situation where the carer, lovely young girl, had put the rider's boots on the wrong feet.
Oh.
Nobody noticed, just thought her legs were sticking out of the wrong angle. But it was no drama.
Yeah.
But it's everybody is very clear, and the real planning and preparation, that is the briefing beforehand. What do you think your role is in this? And as a parent, it might be, right, hand your child over half an hour beforehand. Yeah. Go and film. Go and supply Clive with cheesy chips. You know, it's breaking it down to that role as much as anything else.
Yeah, and I think, you know, a lot of those successful businesses, you look at it, they do it this way. You know, we look at the top elite, like you were saying, international, I think they do it this way. And I think, you know, sometimes when I'm coaching grassroots riders or things and I talk about these kind of systems, I think, oh, you know, I don't need to get to that level of information and what have you. But it's like, but it works. That's why they're at elite level. That's why it's used at that level, because it works. So let's bring some of it in.
Well, it's funny because of lockdown, I've had a lot of time to reflect. I've also taken on a greater role with a couple of children who are prelim quest grassroots riders. And what is fascinating, these are two super young people, and I'm finding that I'm beginning to apply these techniques so that if they arrive at a competition late, we have a quiet word. You know, really, did you think your child could perform? Because you were the horse box driver. Yeah. You know, okay, yeah. And then in this case, the parent said, hey, it was needing competition. I'd got caught out of time. Well, we know the Olympics can be in the evening or in the morning or heat training or whatever. Yeah. So it is everything is a rehearsal. The only two competitions that ever matter to me are Paralympic Games or World Championships. Everything else is a rehearsal. And you'll find that I will be using the Tokyo Games, if they happen, as a rehearsal for Paris. And I'll enjoy Paris as a reflection on what we've done to get there, but Paris will be the what do we do next for 2028. Yeah. Everything is a step further forward.
And I love that concept as well, and we've been talking about it a lot this weekend with riders, of the difference between dwelling on what went wrong, like especially when you're riding, like dwelling on the thing that just you missed or it didn't happen. That's not useful. But at the right point in time, reflecting and analysing to be able to gain more information, to have something to think about for the next time, is a useful system.
Reflection is vital. What went well? What needs to improve? How do we improve it?
Yeah. And even then, it's not just the what was it and the how. It's the taking the analytical element of it, so you know exactly what it is you need to be doing or thinking. Not just it was good, it was nice. Because I know one of your favourite phrases is nice, isn't it?
It drives me insane because it's a 6.
Yeah.
You can have a nice show jumping around, still kick a fence out.
Yeah.
And for me, it's you like it or lump it, you kick the fence out. That's no drama. But what happens over 3 different rounds? You kick the planks out in 3 different rounds. Then that's not an error. Yeah. Then that's becoming a training issue. Yeah. And I keep statistical data of every single dressage test that the Canadian riders do, and it's all on a graph. And we start to look at, wow, you did really well with your medium trots. You're getting 8s for it, but you are only getting 6s for your pirouettes. And that's every single competition. You're getting 6s for your pirouettes. How do we turn that 6 into 6.5? And you can't help, but you know there is a critical element of this. And I know dressage judging is said to be subjective, and of course it is, in many ways. But over 3 different judges, 3 different occasions, when they say the same thing, there is a statistical element in that. Yeah. And Jane Goldsmith always said, you know, you get a 6 of something, it's no drama. Yeah. If over 3 different occasions, consecutive occasions, you get the same comment and the same mark, then there is clearly a training thing that needs to be addressed. And that's when 3 different people say the same thing. Or in show jumping, you have a foot in the water 3 times. Or cross country, you have a run out at an arrowhead 3 times. Then it isn't a mistake, it's a statistical thing.
And I think, you know, people that are at the top of the game are doing stuff like that. People lower down think, oh, that's a lot of hassle or a lot of effort, or, you know, I'll just keep going and I'll get better.
Yeah, how? It's a wonderful word. How are you going to get better? The facts are in front of you. If you don't agree with the facts, that's fine. But the facts are there. Your dressage sheet are factual data as that judge sees them. When 3 judges see it at prelim or intro or whatever, there's an issue there.
And I mean, that's using something I've been talking about recently, is using competition as feedback, which is a mechanism of feedback, but it's absolutely not the only mechanism of feedback to improve your training, is it? So you could get better without ever competing, couldn't you?
Totally.
And if you're going to be doing that, how would you suggest that someone goes about tracking and tracing that kind of element and looking at the process and not the product itself?
Actually, one of the things I do is film the lessons. And even if you don't film them, have a dictaphone by your coach. Listen, and then if you have lessons with 2 or 3 different coaches, they say the same thing.
Yeah.
They'll probably come up with a different set of solutions. Perfect, you've got bigger toolbox. But you listen to your coaches, and I've been experimenting a lot recently with Zoom lessons, and they've been fantastic because I have a client in a different country, and I've given her more lessons in the last 10 weeks because I haven't had to go over there for a week at a time. I've actually given her 2 lessons a day, for the last 10 weeks, and then you start being, and it's choosing a subject, whether it's a short neck or incorrect bend. It's that you choose that chapter heading and you start marking it for yourself, because there's a range of movements laid out for you. If you ride a centre line for yourself and you ride 10 of them and you give it a mark, you've got an average set of marks. It doesn't matter what the mark is. You can mark it out of 157 if you want to. Quite why you would. The maths would be horrendous to work that out. But if you give it a mark and you ride 20, if the mark is the same as it was at the beginning, you've got a challenge on your hands.
Yeah. And that's spatten potting? There's a bit of that, isn't it? Pattern spotting.
All about patterns.
All about pattern spotting. It's the same with mindset. It's about spotting patterns.
Absolutely.
And going, that's something you do a lot. What do you do to help?
Psychology, technically, is the study of behaviour.
Yeah.
Well, we've got wonderful opportunity with horses and people to follow that. Soccer, they'll say, he does that every week. Well, is that a good thing or a bad thing?
So thanks very much, Clive. That has been really interesting. We haven't got onto the really big juicy topic that I'd like to, and I think we'll do that another day, because that will be a whole Q&A in itself, which is about the idea of ability, not disability, and focusing on what you can do, not what you can't. So we won't get into that now, but if people want to get a hold of you, ask you a question, want you involved in anything, how can they get hold of you at the moment?
The best thing to do is I have an email address, which is clivemilkins@me.com.
Yeah.
Because at the moment I'm changing my social media platforms at the moment.
Okay.
So I don't have a telephone number that can be used, and I don't have a Facebook page at the moment. So yeah, clivemilkins@me.com. And obviously, if anybody wants to contact Jenny, and Jenny will forward anything on to me.
Yeah, absolutely. So put your comments below this video, or drop me at Flying Changes an email or anything like that, or a DM, and I'll contact Clive or put you in touch. That would be great. Thank you so much, Clive. It's absolutely fascinating. Can't wait to spend another couple of days learning some more.
Looking forward to it.
And we look forward to some more of this in the future.
Thank you very much.
Thank
It's
you.
all about evolution.